Are you ready for machine coding round?
Yes, sir.
Then create a breadcrumb component for nested objects similar to a folder structure.
Let me try to remember YouTube video on the topic.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on this channel. So today we are covering a senior front-end machine coding interview question which is based on breadcrumbs. So let me just start off with the actual question. So the interview question is like this. So we have to implement a breadcrumb component for nested objects similar to a folder structure. Now this question is typically asked in interview rounds of DP World, but it is also asked in other companies as well. Now what do you mean by breadcrumb component? Let's try to understand that first. So breadcrumb is basically this kind of component that we see at the top of websites. So you have some pages on which when you click, it navigates to the certain parts of the page. Now in case of nested JSON, this is the JSON that we have. Let me just jump into the JSON first. So yeah, so this is the JSON input that we are given in the question. So we have a name called root. We have a children of root called documents. Within documents, we have projects. And within projects, we have a folder called, let's just say, front-end vibes. And then at another level, we have a folder called pictures. And what we need to do is, let's just say when we click on documents, the documents should be visible. On projects, the breadcrumb component should update to the projects. And on nested folder, the rest of the folder. And if I click on second folder, then it should redirect to pictures. Now, this is a pretty complicated problem if you see at it the first hand, because you first have to build a breadcrumb component and then have to handle the nested navigations. So we are going to break down this problem into two steps. The first step is to come up with a breadcrumb component. So we will first come up with a breadcrumb component like this. And then we will use the code from this breadcrumb component to handle a nested JSON. Now, what do I mean by that? So instead of using a nested JSON like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify the code or the input first, and I'm going to take a JSON array like this, which has only the simple JSONs where there is no nesting. And first I'm going to create a breadcrumb component using this JSON object. And once I'm sure that my breadcrumb component works or has a view like this, then I will modify it to handle the folder path. So the step one is to create a simple breadcrumb component using a simpler JSON object. Now let me just jump into the code. Let me remove the build prod and let me start with the development server. So we have a white.js project set up in React, and in the app.jsx we have a breadcrumb simple. So in this breadcrumb simple component, we are going to write our breadcrumb simple component code. And within this component, we have items defined like a simple JSON structure. We have a constant breadcrumb. We have a separator input in which we specify what kind of separator we want in between, like whether we want a slash space separator like this or some other separator. And we have on navigate. So when we click on any of these links, what should happen, that is also given as an input. Now this has to be accessible. So we first define it using a semantic HTML property, because in machine coding rounds, they check whether you have accessibility requirements met as well. So we have a nav with area label breadcrumb, and we have an OL list. So OL is basically numeric list and ordered list basically, and we have some styles defined. The first thing that we need to do is we need to take this item JSON and we need to render it into, let's just say, list items. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do. So what we will do is we will write curly brackets. Within that, we will write items dot map, let's just say. And within that map, we will have item and index. And we have some round bracket here. And we have an li object. So let me just close the li object and the curly bracket as well. So this is the circular bracket for this is the circular bracket for this, and I think we haven't closed the li object. So let's just close it with li and hit save. So we are using items. So let's just save it to items. I have GitHub Copilot enabled. So some of the auto completions work, but in interview rounds, I'm not sure whether Copilot can be used. But we will use it just for basic code completions, nothing more than that. Now within this li items, I will have the individual item as the output. Now we will check the code, and I think there is some error. Yeah, I got the issue. Okay. So in this item, we need to pass the label instead of the item itself. So this is the label. And now we have the unordered list or ordered list with the values. If I hit refresh, the error should go away. So we have the simple breadcrumb with OL list. The first thing that we can do is we can display this OL list as flex. So let me just give it some style. So style is equal to, and I have some styles defined, so I'm going to use them directly. So we go with styles dot breadcrumb. It's save. Now this is displayed as a flex, that is horizontally instead of vertically. Now there are two things to keep in mind here. First is I am using display flex property to horizontal it. Next is list style type set to none, so that 1, 2, 3, 4 is not displayed. Then margin and padding are set to 0 so that they are spaced equally. If I remove this and list style type as well, you will see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shown and they are not like proper. If I set the list style type as none, the 1, 2, 3, 4 will go away, and margin and padding 0 will make sure that the 1, 2, 3, 4 margin padding is removed. So we have those values. Now let's modify we need to add the separator now. So within this li item, what we can do is, if the index that we have, okay, let me just use the copilot code. Now if the index is not equal to 0, then I will return the separator. Let me just remove the style for now. We will take styles later. So if index is not equal to 0, that is if the item is not first, then I will return the span, and within that span I will return the separator. So as you can see, we have the separator defined here. So in the initial code also we had the separators, right? So basically we are returning those separators here, and those separators are shown in between the breadcrumb. The next thing we need to do is, we just don't need the label, but we need it to be a link. So what we can do is we can use a ahref tag. So we'll go with ahref is equal to, for now let's just set this to hash, and within this a item we will take the item dot label, and it's saved. So now as you can see, we are getting close to the actual breadcrumb navigation that we had. With some styling, this should look better. So now we have the values. Now what we can do is, in the ahref, instead of the usual attribute, we can change this. So let's just go with a, then href, or yeah, let's just set this to hash. But what we can do is, on the on click of this, so we will go with ahref, and let's just go with, now I'm not sure if I should go with ahref or on click, but I think this is what the code defines. So what we can do is, we can use some help from Copilot here, and within this we will go with item dot label. Now as you can see, we have a href with item dot href, which is present here, the href link. On click, we prevent the default event, which is to navigate to this href, and we use the on navigate, which is passed, and we pass the href link, and whatever the on navigate links want to do with the click action, that it can handle. Now if we go back to the code, we see that all these links are now clickable. Now on the last link or the active link, we don't want it to be highlighted. So what we can do is, we can add a condition here, a ternary operator, which is, if index is equal to items dot length minus 1, then we will have a span tag. That is, we will only show the item dot label, and if it is not the last item, then we will show the ahref link. So it will show that MacBook Pro is currently the active page, and rest of the things are different. Now let's apply some style. So first we did apply the styles to the OL item, which was this one. Then in the item, we can again have a display flex and center. So item could have a property like style is equal to styles dot item. So this looks a little bit better, and we have an area current accessibility attribute. So if index is not equal to length minus 1, then we will say that this is the page link. Similarly, in the ahref link, we can go with styles dot link, which is text decoration none and other stuff. And in the separator, I think in the separator we are missing some styling. So let's add style is equal to styles dot separator. It's saved, and as you can see, we have a working breadcrumb component. Now this is same as what we just showed. So we are done with the step 1, which is to create a basic breadcrumb component, and this is what the code looks like right now. We can improve the code a little bit, but I think, like on the indentation part, because I don't have, I think, prettier setup. But on the basic coding part of the breadcrumb itself, we are pretty good. Now in the step 2, we will use this breadcrumb component to handle the nested navigation object. So let's jump into that. So let's just say we have a breadcrumb page and we have the JSON, right? Now we know that when it is on route, and so we are dealing with a nested JSON object, which is similar to a tree kind of a thing. And basically, when we are handling with navigation using this tree object, we know that the first and the most straightforward way to implement this is using recursion. Now, for recursion, we need to like figuring out what the recursion code is a bit tricky in the first phase. So we need to first come up with a recursive solution to handle the nested JSON object, and then use the simple breadcrumb code into the nested JSON object to create the actual navigation component. Now, coming up with the actual recursive approach, we need to break down the problem into two parts. First is to handle the base case, which is the starting case by which the recursion should start, and then the repetitive case in which the repetitive case needs to be handled with repetitive function called to the function itself. So the base case is that, let's just say if we have a target path, then we will check that whether the target path is same as the current path, and if it is same, then we return the path, and if not, then we recursively go inside the children and we check whether the target path is same as the path within the children, and if yes, then we return the code. Now I have a utils function here in which we have handled the base case. So let's just say we pass the initial path as empty array. And so what we do is, in the new path, we take the object of the path, and we are like dealing with two things parallelly in this case. One is the folder navigation and second is the breadcrumb navigation itself. So that is why we have a folder.name in which the folders will be handled, and the actual path in which the folder path is handled. Now, if the base case is if the folder.path, which is the initial folder.path, is same as the target path which we want to achieve, then we return the path directly using the two attributes, which is the current path is the new path and the current folder is the folder itself. If not, then recursively we go inside the children of the folder, which is the children of this initial JSON object, and within those children, what we do is we compare and check whether the result of the function call itself is same present, and if present, then we return the result. This will be much more clear if we add some logs and try to understand the code with an example. So let's just say in this breadcrumb page we have this folder structure, right? So we set the initial current path to slash, which is the root path, using a state variable. So we have used state here. Then we take the result from the function which we just saw, and we show that result in our code in this form. So what we do is, if we are in the, let's just say, root path, then we show the subfolders in the root path in this folder structure. So we take the result and we extract out the subfolders from the result. So if the result exists, then we take out the result.current folder.children. Initially, these childrens are the documents and the pictures folder, so that those are the subfolders. We map upon those subfolders and we show them as the children. So basically, the folder names that we have here, the name documents and the pictures of the first children, those are shown for the root path. So this is the initial path, and the current path is also passed to our breadcrumb component. So breadcrumb component has our folder structure, which is the entire JSON, the current path that we are traversing on, and the onNavigate function, which is trying to set the current path at the navigation step. So this set current path will update the current path, which is used by the folder structure and our breadcrumb component as well. So now we jump into the breadcrumb component. So the code, if you see, is the same that we had in our simple breadcrumb component. So the same code that we had here, href, this is also written here. It is just like typed a little better. So we have the OL, then instead of the items that we had in the simple breadcrumb, we are using a state variable. So instead of like passing the entire items JSON, we are dividing those into a breadcrumbs component and we are passing them, and that is been mapped, and the li items and the rest of the code in the breadcrumb component is same. Now initially, when we are at the root path, the breadcrumb is using the current, like the folder structure is been taken, and what we do is, in the use effect, we take the find path and folder function which we just saw. Now in this case, the new path is the path passed from the parent, which is the root path, and within that path, let me just close the breadcrumb simple for now. We are like taking the result of the function and we are setting it to the breadcrumbs result of path. Now what we do is, let's just print out the initial case. So let me just print out the folder itself with log. So we go with console.log, the folder itself, then the target path and the path. Then what we can do is, we can check the new path as well. So we copy the new path and we console log the new path as well. Now let it save and let's try to understand the recursive code. Let me hit refresh. So initially the folder is the root folder and there are children. The target path is slash, which is set in this breadcrumb page. So initially the target path is slash. So within this folder structure, what we do is we first take the path array. In the new path, we assign the path which is passed from the folder, which is the root itself with the path slash from the root. So name root and path is passed in this new path, which is the name folder.name. So folder.name is root and folder.path is the slash path. So new path becomes the path slash and our target path is slash as well. So we check the folder.path, which is the slash itself and the target path. So we return the result as the path is the new path and current folder is the root folder itself. Now, if we go back to the breadcrumb page and if we log out the result here from the function, in the first case, so in this case, this is the result that we have. So in the result, we have the path set to slash and current folder is the root with its children, documents and pictures, right? So those documents and pictures are then shown here. This was the first step. And in the breadcrumb component, we are taking the breadcrumb. So initially, we are showing it as a root. Why? Because in this case, the result that we have, so let's just log out the result in the breadcrumb component as well. It will be same, but let's just name it as result in breadcrumb and it's saved. Now let's just hit refresh. So as you can see, the result in breadcrumb, the path is set to slash, which is shown here, and the folder.name is root, which is the item name. So in this case, within the li, the item.name is the breadcrumb.name, which is root, and the path is slash. Now the things get tricky once we step into the documents folder. So let's step into the documents folder and see. Once we hit the documents, let me just clear the console. Now from the folder, the new path is first set to root, but root has children's like, and the target path is slash documents, which is not matching to this path. So we step within the recursive approach and we set within this case, and we again call the find path and folder with the child, which is these two children of the root, which are this array, which is documents and pictures. Now within this, it finds that the target path documents matches with the second path, so new path is the documents. So within that documents, it finds that the path documents matches with the target path documents. So it returns that documents folder and the actual root as the result. So as you can see in the path, we have two values. First is root, which is shown at the first hierarchy, and the documents itself, which is shown here. And in case of the breadcrumb component, so first we are focusing on the breadcrumb page. So in the breadcrumb page, in the result that we had, so the result has two things, the current folder, which is the documents itself. So this current folder is taken to display the subfolder. So in this case, the children is the projects folder, which is shown here. And then we step into the breadcrumb component. And within the breadcrumb component, now the result that we have in the result in breadcrumb is that the current folder is documents and the path has two values, which is root and documents. So we map over those two values and we show root and the documents. Similarly, when we clear the console and step into projects, it will go recursively in the three steps and the new path becomes root, documents and projects, which matches the target path document slash project. And then within that breadcrumb component also, we have the path set to three values, which is root documents project, which is shown here. Once we step into the next level child project, the root now becomes 4 level, new path becomes 4 level. The result in breadcrumb path also becomes at the 4th level. Now the front-end vibes does not have a child path that is in the, I think it is in the folder. So folder, in this folder, the children are empty, which is why we are not showing any subfolders here. Why? Because in the breadcrumb page, we told that if result exists and if it has children, then show the children, else don't show the children. So in this case, the current path becomes front-end vibes and we have the breadcrumb navigation. So this was the machine coding interview question approach to solve the breadcrumb component with nested object. So coming back to the presentation, we went with the step-by-step approach. We came up with a recursive solution to handle nested JSON object, and then we used the simple breadcrumb code to handle the nested JSON. So yeah, that was the end of the interview question solution. Thank you for watching the channel. If you found this video useful, then subscribe for more such content in your feed. And have a nice day ahead. Goodbye.
We can also create a breadcrumb component on how our Instagram scrolling leads to existential crisis. Subscribe for more such content in your feed.